Greetings and welcome back to agenda item number 5, which is productivity tools. So what do we mean by productivity tools? Actually, we're talking less about OneDrive specifically and more about that you can access Word on the web, Excel on the web, PowerPoint on the web, and save these files to OneDrive. And it makes it very convenient and easy to open those files anywhere, anytime, from any device with internet connection. Doesn't even have to have the software installed if you use the browser-based versions, which these productivity tools are kind of built into, right? Now, as I've said before, let me just emphasize as we start into this, that the installed Word, Excel, PowerPoint installed on your computer is going to be much stronger, much more rich with features than the web-based editions of these software. But they have their uses. So we're just going to very briefly look at this. And as you see, this is the last hands-on agenda item. So when we talk about productivity tools, what I'm specifically describing is online editing, revisions, comments, and tracking changes. So let's just get an overview before we dive in. First, when we have our, let's say, Word document on the web, I can click on the name of my file and you can see it here, and I could change that file. But look down here, version history, and I can return to a previous version. Now, why is that important? Because on the web especially, the default is to auto save. You can even have your desktop software set to automatically save, and that may be a great convenience for you, and if so, hey, that's your preference and that's no problem. But sometimes when there are multiple people working on a document, they might select something, and just like if you hit the space bar and you have the entire document selected, it would replace all that document with just the space, right? Because whatever is selected is affected. So if you select a paragraph and you accidentally delete it, and maybe you didn't notice it, maybe somebody didn't notice, that's the real key. If you need to go back to a previous version, again, click the file name, look for this version history, and you'll be able to go back. Here's another, comments and track changes. Again, we're just getting an overview. I've got this document open, and on this review tab, do you see the big red arrow pointing to review? You're going to see where I can add comments, and I can either show or not show those comments. Sometimes they really get in the way. I can delete comments. I can even use previous and next buttons to move back and forth between those comments very quickly. So that's kind of nice. You can, maybe you make a change and you tell somebody why you made the change, or you're not comfortable making the change, so you just want to put a note that maybe this is something we need to talk about. Here's another thing that I can do. If you set track changes, which are, you see in this picture, they're currently set to off, you can turn that on, and then anytime someone makes a change, it's going to be tracked. If you select something and delete it, it actually will not delete. It will have a line going through it to show that you intended to delete it. Then what can happen is the person who's kind of in control of the document, they can go in and they can either accept those changes or they can reject those changes. Maybe one person writes the report and somebody else edits the report. That could be a supervisor. It could be a colleague, a member of your team, and they can say, gosh, I've looked at this so much, I can't even see it anymore. So would you please go through and edit? But you put track changes on, and it gives you the freedom to accept or reject changes and to move through those changes with the previous and next buttons. So you're starting to see these productivity tools. Here's one more. I know you all are familiar with this dictation button, so it's there even in the online, but notice right above here it says add comments to the documents. This is a new feature because it's designed to be like a social media type post where you can have a discussion about a particular part of the document. I think we should change this, we should move this to the end, and two other people say, well, yes, I agree, but maybe we should put it in the middle. Maybe it's better in this other location. Maybe we should add a new section to the report. You can have a whole conversation in comments. So that's kind of a new feature that you might like. Well, whoops, we're not done. Let's go and try some of that. Let's do that. So I'm going to escape out of my PowerPoint, and I already have oops, there we are. I already have my OneDrive open. And if I go down to this folder that we've been practicing with, and these were just some documents that we had practiced with earlier. So why don't I just go ahead and I'll open this one that we labeled revision. So what should we start off with? Why don't we go to review? And I could start off with this, that's all, folks. And I'm going to select that. And I'm going to add a new comment. And you see how it's under the review tab. And I'm in my web browser. I did not save this to my desktop. Now you'll see the similar features in your desktop version, but we're just practicing with the web version. I'm going to add a new comment. I can do an @ mention and put somebody's username, for example, in there, or even their name. It will recognize a lot of times to grab their attention. Or I could say, goodness, this statement is unprofessional. I mean, you probably would not type that, okay? I'm just using this to have a little fun. Notice it says I can say Control Enter plus Enter to post, but I didn't even spell that right. So I'm getting on to somebody for being unprofessional, and I'm being unprofessional. Okay, so I'm going to send that, and you can see the comment is there. Somebody can come through and like that, right? You can see some of the different options. I can edit it. Once it's done, maybe it doesn't say professional. Maybe we should just delete that. I can delete the thread, that type of thing. But we can have a whole conversation here with this show comments. So let's see, also under review, we talked about, maybe I'll need to add a few more comments. Let me just add more text here, because we're just doing this as an example. And notice that I'm selecting it because I want to tie the comment to a particular piece of text. So I can add another comment, and I'll say, okay, I will add text before Friday. Right, I could put an @ mention there so that it would, I can let my boss know. I've seen that comment, I'm going to ask. And see how it really is tied to that piece of text. When I hover my mouse over the text, it makes that comment light up a little bit. Okay, and you even see this symbol right here. Now if I move back to the top of the document, and when I say I move back up, I don't mean just scrolling, because that doesn't change my insertion point. I want to actually click at the start of the document so that my insertion point is there. That is the starting place at the top of the document, so that if I then want to look at the comments, I want to go to the previous and next comments, I can click next, starting from right here, and it takes me directly to this. Imagine that you have a 30-page document, and there may be 30 comments, there may be 15 comments. This will help you very easily move back and forth between those comments. And when I'm done, I can either mark it as resolved, and you see the little checkbox. Now that's kind of the thing. Do I really want that to still be there? I mean, it might be okay for now while we're working on it, but certainly the final document, I would not want that comment to be there. So I might click on that comment again, and see how now it's opened this comments panel over here to the side. And much easier to look through these. Of course, it's hard for me now to see that this comment is much later in the document. So I hope you're getting a good understanding of how these comments work. But let's just say that I have, resolved this comment. Everybody's knows that I've resolved whatever that is. So I'm ready to be done with it. In that case, I'm going to delete that particular thread. Now you see that it truly is gone. And I could have used this delete option up here. And if I do the little drop down box, you may have been saying, do I have to delete all the comments one by one? No, you can delete all comments in the document. So the next thing I want to show you is this. Oops, I'm going to close that comments panel and see the comments button up here. That's another way to access that panel. So we saw comments here, and we next and show or hide comments, and we see this box up here. All right, I wanted to talk about track changes. If I click on this drop down box, right now it's set to off. So what do I want to track? Just for my own? Or do I want to track changes for everyone? Well, I'm going to say for everyone, because what I might do at this point is I might share. Remember we talked about sharing earlier? Well, we can do it directly from the document. And remember we talked about the two different ways, by sending the email or by just simply copying the link. But we also discussed the importance of managing that access. Who has access and how long do they have access for, right? So we want to make sure that we're looking at that. Oh, hadn't been created for this file. Okay, so I haven't created I haven't done the sharing itself. There we go. So I needed to click that share link. Now this looks much more familiar, right? So I can click on the gear wheel so that I can decide who I'm sharing it with. So again, how did I do that? Share. I think I went directly to manage access, and that's when it said I hadn't created the share link yet. So probably the better way to do that is, I kind of jumped the gun there, is click share and then maybe go to share. That's much more familiar. Then I can again click on the gear wheel before you send that. The default should mean to read only, to view it only. Okay, remember you can set that expiration date, and see here it says can view. Okay, back on track, track changes. I'm going to track them for everyone, so I'm turning that on. And let's say now I didn't actually clean this up. Oh, I see I have an opportunity to add a comment there. See, that's the add comment button, and I'm going to delete that. Look at that. It did not delete it, but it is notating that I deleted it. And there's even a little bar out to the side. That bar lets you know that there is a change in that row of the document. That may sound really insignificant, but when you are trying to find little things, like see how I say hello again. What if I put a comma right there? That would be really hard to find, except for the fact that that bar to the left hand side there in the margin helps me know there's something inside. Okay, so again, you can find things like that. Maybe I go here and say add more text, and I'm going to click at the end, and I'm going to hit the enter key a couple times. So those extra enter keys, those extra carriage returns, so to speak, you can't see them, but the computer says, she's put some changes there, right? So I'll add something like flowers in the spring are so pretty because they are watered by many spring showers. How about that? You saw the little blue, right, saying, okay, that may not be, but look at that. I clicked. Let me do that again. First of all, you see that it added it in red with an underline. So this has been, this is a change that is being tracked by this document. When I clicked on it, it's telling me who did this, that this was added, and that this is when it was added, and this is specifically what was added. Notice I even have a little option right now because I am the document owner. Not necessarily everyone would have this ability. Remember, you have to kind of control the permissions. And I could immediately accept, look, I'm just hovering over that, and it says, oh, I'm getting ready to accept that suggestion, or I could reject that suggestion. Let me go back up to the top. We've made just a couple simple changes, and we were looking at track changes, and I think if I even expand, nope, I was thinking some of the comments would show up. Okay, see this little green checkbox here, and if I click on this drop down box, I can accept. Okay, my first change was that little comma right there. So what I can do is I can accept and move to the next. Okay, it found it, and it says click or press down to view suggestions. Okay, so how about if I click it? That's probably a very poor comma. Oops. Can I hover over it? That's going to be the hard part. Maybe I should just press the down. Oops. Can I get that? I think I need to select that. Alt down. Okay, so it says, okay, here's the suggestions. It added it, and I could accept it again. So it moved me to it. That was the first step. And then I had to accept it again just to be sure. Do you see the bar went away to the side? And do you see that it's not in red anymore? Let's do that again. I can accept and move to the next. So it's moved to the next. I'm going to accept and move to the next. Now let me scroll back up. Oops. Do you see that it accepted that that was deleted? So the first time I click it, it's moving me to it. The second time, it's saying, okay, you said accept, and it's moving back to it. Now, hopefully you know the keyboard command Control Z, right? What does Control Z do? Undo, undo. So I'm going to undo. I'm going to Control Z. Let me make sure that's active. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Oh, is my undo? Oh, I don't see my undo is not working. There it goes. I think my document was not active. I apologize. So I've brought back those changes that I accepted, because what I want to show you is that another thing you can do, and of course you would only do this once you are certain that all of the proposed changes are correct. I could just say accept all changes, and boom, went through the whole document, accepted everything. Maybe you do this after a meeting where everyone has agreed, right? Okay, let's Control Z again. I'm having to do that a couple times for it to take effect. Bring those back, because what if we looked at this next button? This one is about rejecting. I could just simply reject all changes, or I could move through. Maybe okay, let me start at this first one. Maybe at this first one, I accept it and I move to the next. Okay, it hasn't accepted it yet, so I'm going to click again. It accepted that comma. But now I like that's all, folks. I think that's kind of funny, right? So I'm going to reject the deletion of that sentence. So I just moved over to this button, reject, and move to next. If I scroll back up, let's see the impact, and it's still there. Okay, I'm going to Control Z again. Let me start at the top. Another thing I can do is simply move through those changes. That's another excellent way to find them very quickly, so that I can decide. Maybe we're in a Teams meeting, and we've been collaborating on this document, and now as a team we're going to look at these changes, and we're going to kind of vote on each one by one. All right. Point out one other thing. Right here it says markup view, and what this is talking about is our view of the document. So look at this little drop down box. It says markup on page. In other words, I can see those markups. Well, markup in margin, simple view. Okay, see now how it just shows a red line and it does not show the proposed deletion of the text. This is, in my opinion, a very important thing to understand, that there are different views that you have of the document, because this could very easily escape your notice. You send it to a customer, they look at it and they go, what's that red line there? And they come up here and they just quite simply change the view. And they see all your notes, I mean, you don't want to put that out into the world, okay? So you want to make sure that you do finalize everything. For example, you go through, I'm just going to accept all changes. You resolve, for example, any comments that you have there, delete these. You may want to save this. Now remember, this is auto saving. You may want to save this in a different document so that you have all those markups, but then when you're ready to finalize it, you go to a completely different copy of the document. Right? That makes sense, I hope. Yes? Okay. We didn't. We just made those changes in here. I've deleted stuff. Oh man. And I'm in my web browser and it was auto saving. What to do, what to do. This little icon here says it's in the cloud. Click on that little drop down box. And what did we say? We said we need to come down here to the version history. I'm going to click on that. It says, okay, I saved it just now. Do you want that one? Do you want to go back to the one at 145? Do you want to go further back to 135? Okay, let's go all the way back. I'm going to go all the way back to that one. It says, okay, what do you want to do now that you've got this? Let's see what I've got here. I hadn't added that second page yet. So now I have a decision to make. I can either restore or save a copy. Now I'm going to go ahead and restore. And what this means, okay, you see Word kind of relaunching there, is that we're back to ground zero, as if we had not made any of those changes. We restored it back to the time of 135. Now what we could have done is we could have just saved a copy, and then we would have had all of our changes and our copy. Okay, so anyway, so I think you get the point on that, right? I could go through and do another example, but I think you get the point on that, and I know this video is getting a little long. So that's a little bit about what we wanted to talk about. Let me go back in my slides here. Online editing, revisions, comments, and tracking changes. Now I think that we can say that this one is done. In our next agenda item, we're just going to talk a little bit about some final things such as the OneDrive app, and we'll see you there. Thanks.